I was just saying.
Thanks. What does that mean? I'm gonna have to use it now.
Sorry.
Right?
I still sound. I've got a piece of information with you.
Should I just wait? Sorry, it was just cutting some time. No, it's fine. I didn't mean to rush it all at the end, but I was trying to. Everybody just walks in the rooms. His phone's in here. Okay. I think he's getting coffee.
Okay.
Okay, great. Since 5:30 this evening, the board has been in closed session to consider the following. Sorry, I can't. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district. The sale or purchase of securities, investments, or investment contracts. Collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives. Litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal. I will entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Those in favor? Aye. Okay, the motion passes. We are in open session. Welcome to the September 5th board meeting. Our mission is to educate students to be self-directed learners, collaborative workers, complex thinkers, quality producers, and community contributors. Will you please call the roll, Ms. Bell?
Sure. Student Ambassador President Vanessa Eklund, board members Janet Yang-Rohr, Charles Cush, Donna Wanke, Kristen Fitzgerald, Christine Gerke, Terry Fielden, and Paul Young.
Okay, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The first item on the agenda is good news.
Very good news to share with the community this evening. For the second consecutive time that it has been eligible for such recognition, the Naperville Community Unit School District 203 Board of Education has been recognized by the Illinois Association of School Boards for model school governance. The recognition really calls attention and highlights school boards who have effective governance practices in place to ensure that they are advocating on behalf of students as well as on behalf of taxpayers in their community. So congratulations to the Board of Education for all of your work that went into that. I'd also like to share that during the Labor Day parade yesterday, I had the pleasure to march with a number of kids from both Central and North High School, as well as some of our friends from District 204 with the Naperville JCs to collect money for Hurricane Harvey victims in Houston in the work of the what do they call them, the can shakers or whatever like that, bucket shakers, brought in over $6,000 from people who go to a parade not expecting to pay any money. So community was very generous to our kids, and they were fantastic working the crowd. So great job by our community contributors. That's good news.
Wonderful. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. I do not have any slips of paper for public comment, but if anyone in the audience wishes to address the board. Okay, the next item is the action by consent. Could I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda, item 6.01, as presented.
A motion and a second having been heard. Would you please call the roll, Ms. Bell?
Leong,
Aye.
Gerke,
Yes.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Wanke,
Yes.
Yang-Rohr,
Aye.
Cush,
Aye.
Fielden.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Moving on to communications. The first item is item 7.01, student ambassador reports.
Just making sure this is working. Okay. Well, last Wednesday, Bernie Sanders visited our school. He came to talk to our APUSH students, which is AP U.S. History, and our government students. Clubs and activities got together and began planning what they want to do for the year. We've had 2 football games, and we won both. We had 2 late arrivals, which are personally not my favorite because, well, the last late arrival, there was a road blockage on Washington Street.
Okay.
And there weren't any signs the day before or at that specific time, which made students late, including me, myself. And tomorrow night, our counselors will have a presentation in the auditorium to inform parents about the whole college processing, and that will be at 6:30.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for that report. Okay, moving on to item 7.02. Of course.
So you mentioned that, oh, sorry. I did what you did. You mentioned that the late arrival wasn't necessarily your favorite thing, but how is it generally being received by the students? You know, it's only a couple weeks in, but how's it going?
Some students like it because they believe they get to sleep in more, but the funny thing about it is that teachers actually tend to give more homework on the Tuesday before late arrival days, which kind of in the end, you're not really gaining any sleep. And students also tend to be late on late arrival days because we're leaving the same time where parents are leaving or everybody's getting to the school around the same time. So parking on Hillside then becomes a problem. So you're circling around trying to find somewhere to park. No problem.
We'll be sure to report back to the board throughout the course of the year with the implementation of professional learning communities model as well as the impact overall. But that is one thing to our kids who are at home right now watching. Change in patterns, change in behaviors at a different time. You're going to see a different traffic pattern and different work that goes on. So if it takes you 10 minutes normally, it may take you 12 or 15, and that can make you late. So I know, I'm sure both of them did. I saw one of them from a high school talk 203 message today to their student body, reminding them of, you know, being thoughtful about your time for departure to ensure different traffic patterns and get there. So we'll continue to work with our kids. With that, I'm going to invite Principal Gina Baumgartner to come to the presentation table. This evening, we have our first school improvement plan update to the Board of Education for the 2017-2018 school year. And as a reminder to you, as well as a reminder to our community, every month during the first meeting of the month, we invite one of our principals to come before the Board of Education to share with you an update on the things that are going on in their school with a targeted focus really on talking about activities and work that they're doing related to their school improvement planning. And this evening, Riverwoods is first, and I'm going to turn it over to Gina.
Good evening. First, I'd like to acknowledge really all the work that I'm presenting today is truly the work of my staff. It's not just my work, it's the work of all of my teachers. And I have 2 of my staff members here, Kathy Resnick and Erin Sharkey, so I'm happy to represent all of them today to share their good work. At Riverwoods, Pride stands for the attributes we, our 502 students and 80 staff members, strive to show in all of our actions. Perseverance, respect, responsibility, integrity, decision-making, and excellence are our guides. Through these doors, you will see our pride as collaborators, problem solvers, innovators, thinkers, contributors, and producers. You will hear our pride through discussions, kind words, the dual languages of Spanish and English. As the magnet school for the dual language program, we welcome students from across the district without a dual language program at their home schools. We are proud to promote multilingualism and multiculturalism throughout our building, not just in our dual language classrooms, where learners strive to be bilingual in Spanish and English. You will feel welcomed, included, cherished, and feel the dedication to high-quality educational experiences, an excitement for learning from students and staff. We also demonstrate our pride in our achievements and growth as documented in the results of our school improvement plan. The process of school improvement is ongoing. We begin by assessing the state of our school, including student, staff, and community information and input, such as student demographics, academic data, school climate surveys, parent feedback, and research-based indicators on successful schools. Next, we develop a plan to address any areas not showing expected results including specific steps to close achievement and growth gaps. As a school, we are in the stage of reviewing our current plan to establish our next set of goals, including SMART goals. Future SMART goals, more focused extensions of our current goal-setting process, will help us identify and target specific areas and student groups to close achievement and growth gaps. Typically at Riverwoods, we have a goal strand supporting the development of our culturally responsive practices and social-emotional learning, and a goal strand supporting content instruction and learning. Last year, we added a third goal regarding 21st century learning skills in preparation for our digital learning initiative of one-to-one Chromebooks in grades 2 through 5 and iPads in kindergarten through first grade. Detailed information about each of these goals, including the tasks accomplished, actions for continuation, and analysis of data to measure results, follows. Based on information from student, staff, and parent surveys, we developed methods to foster problem-solving skills through restorative practices such as the problem-solving bridge, to create fly-up day for the end of the school year when students travel to a class of their upcoming grade level to learn from a current student at this grade level, and to celebrate our community multiculturalism through various methods such as our first international night and the continuation of around-the-world presentations by parents and students. Areas for further development in this goal include the development of more student leadership opportunities, the integrity of the new social-emotional learning curriculum, and related cyber safety practices. Let's look at information that we use to measure this goal. One method to determine our growth in this goal is to analyze the number of playground incidents over time. Playground incidents include physical and verbal altercations. The chart shows the number of playground incidents significantly decreasing by 78% over 3 years. This decrease of incidents during recess is the result of the efforts building relationships among students, recess game skills, recess equipment, and the work with inclusive practices, including the buddy bench. Leading to this decline in playground incidents also includes the problem-solving strategies and restorative practices implemented during this time frame. Our staff linked our student engagement goal with content area growth and achievement. In previous assessment data, we noted the skill of summarizing a long passage during and after reading was more challenging for our students. We also noticed that our English learners were not acquiring language skills at an appropriate rate, for many students were not exiting from language support programs while in the intermediate and junior high years after being with us from kindergarten. To address these needs, the English learner teacher and learning behavior specialists co-taught in several classes with language learners and special education students to highly engage the students in purposeful learning at varied levels. Our teachers developed a continuum of skills and vocabulary linked and aligned across the grade levels for literacy skills of summarizing. A similar continuum was developed by our K through 5 dual language teachers for language development. This year, both continuums and practices will be implemented. Through a grant from our Language Acquisition Department, we held a Language and Innovation 3-day camp this summer for language learners. Students participated in inquiry-based lessons with robotic cubelets while expanding and practicing academic language skills in preparation for their new grade level and upcoming STEM work. To continue growing with this goal, we will provide opportunities for teacher-to-teacher classroom observations, cultivate the feedback loop to students regarding their progress toward goals, and we will lay groundwork for the new science STEM curriculum rolling out next year, including strategic vocabulary. The following data analysis gives us measures for this goal. On our state standardized assessment, Park from 2015-2016, for the scores from this previous year are still embargoed. In math, 70% of Riverwood students in grades 3 through 5 are on track to be college and career ready, compared with 63% of the district and 31% of the state. In English language arts, 66% of Riverwood students in grades 3 through 5 are on track to be college and career ready, compared with 68% of the district and 36% of the state. An opportunity for growth presented in this chart is a small gap between our English language arts results and the district's results. These results were prior to the actions previously stated for this goal. Performance series assessments occur 3 times per year for students in grades 2 through 5. This assessment determines the percent of students meeting grade level expected standards at these 3 testing periods. From 2016 to 2017, student achievement levels in math on the performance series increased while reading results held steady. On the math performance series, as shown in the previous slide, 83% of our students demonstrated mastery of their grade level standards. On reading performance series, 76% of our students demonstrated mastery of grade level standards. In both reading and math, we see performance gaps between our overall results and the results of our students from low-income backgrounds and our English learners. These are currently being addressed through our co-teaching work, instructional alignment in reading and language skills, professional learning communities, and differentiated instruction within the school day. In the previous chart, the data presented achievement gaps for our English learners and low-income students. However, the current chart shows that our gap-closing measures of co-teaching, standards-aligned instruction, instructional and vocabulary continuums, enrichment opportunities before and after school, as well as creating an overall supportive environment, have started to begin to close the achievement gaps in math and reading as shown on the performance series assessments. For our English learners, we saw growth in achievement levels in math from 29% to 43% of our students meeting or exceeding on grade level math standards on performance series. For our English learners, we saw growth in achievement levels in reading from 18% to 32% of our students meeting or exceeding grade level reading standards on performance series. For our students from low-income backgrounds, we saw growth in achievement levels in math from 31% to 50% of our students meeting or exceeding grade level standards on performance series. For our students from low-income backgrounds, we saw growth in achievement levels in reading from 28% to 33% meeting or exceeding grade level standards on performance series. As a staff, we are already working on the development of strategic SMART goals and benchmarks within our school improvement plan to further this progress. To prepare us for the Digital Learning Initiative, teachers and assistants have been immersed in the Google platform. Their knowledge of the skills for the 21st century have been expanded as we prepare students for career skills not even dreamed up yet. As we look to the future for our continuous school improvement, we will investigate further information collected regarding teacher collaboration within our school and across our schools. As previously shown, we do have some achievement gaps. English language learners on performance series and reading achievement, as well as our lower socioeconomic students' performance series math and reading achievement. While we've seen some gaps for these groups start to close, we still need to focus on these for our future SMART goal work. Through the implementation of the Digital Learning Initiative and the Social Emotional Curriculum, we look forward to transforming student learning opportunities. This year, our theme at Riverwoods is making connections together. As we strive to infuse social emotional learning into our daily activities, embed purposeful technology use to enhance instruction and learning, and continue to develop positive and supportive relationships with our students and community. To facilitate this transformational learning, we appreciate the district's support in the creation of our new learning commons. Let's see, hear, and get a feel for this transformational space.
I can't wait to go in the room where with Mrs. Giuliani where we can like read. And the thing I also like about it is when the seats, that like the table and the chairs, how it look like a flower, and the chairs that people sit on look like little flower petals. I like the monitor because I could use it to work as a group with my friends for our Chromebooks.
I'm so excited to start using this green screen room because it looks so amazing with all the new like tables and seats and this big green screen wall behind me.
You already did like a really good job, and she has a bigger office.
Thank you for this opportunity to showcase Riverwood School, our joy and pride. Any questions?
Thank you for that report. Questions from the board? Paul?
I really like what you're doing with your playground incidents metric. I was wondering if you could tell us more about how your social and emotional learning program leads to that metric.
I think a lot of the work that we've done in restorative practices and giving kids skills to problem solve on their own, so adults don't always need to step in, but the children are starting to develop and internalize skills to problem solve. So if they have a conflict with another child, they're able to pull kind of from within themselves and figure out, what's the first thing I need to do? Do I need to tell that other person to stop and then make an agreement, and they can start to work that out themselves before then they come to an adult? So we've worked to empower the children.
Thank you.
Charles?
Actually, I had kind of a follow-up to that
Sorry, okay,
question.
Terry.
What's the buddy bench for?
The buddy bench, actually, we did a kind of a shift. Often when we think of a buddy bench, it's a place where children go because they don't have a buddy. We really looked at it to have kind of a paradigm shift with that, is our buddy bench is a place to find new friends. So if children see someone sitting on the buddy bench, they immediately go and engage that child in an activity. And we find that after the implementation, we rarely see any children sitting there because the kids are so quick to snag someone up and make a new friend that the next recess, they've already included that child in their activities.
Awesome. I think I agree with Paul here that playground incident and the buddy bench, I think, very impressive. Also building some solid life skills for students going forward, right? Because if you can solve problems when you're a child, in theory, you get to be an adult, they should be less confrontational.
Charles? So
I will, first of all, great presentation. Second of all, I'll kind of continue in that same vein, and then I have two other quick questions. So as you thought about the playground incidences, and you mentioned some of the causes were, providing kids with those skills, did you engage parents and to kind of have discussions so that the behaviors you're helping them can then extend beyond that and then continue to build?
A lot of our work originally came from obviously the staff and the students, what we were seeing, but also came from parents. I did some community forums my first couple years at Riverwoods, and that was one of the things that they shared that they were concerned about. They were concerned about different acts between different children, if it was verbal or physical, and so that information came from them. And one of the things that I did last year was I shared the processes that we work with the children for that problem solving. We shared the problem solving bridge. We shared something that we called, we helped the children understand what bullying truly is. And so I shared that with the parents as well through our weekly newsletter. I also shared it at home and school meetings and with some of our opportunities that we have our parents together so that they're right there with us helping the children gain those skills.
It's fantastic, and obviously it's one of the rare instances where you want to see the graph go down. So well done there. One other thing, you mentioned for goal one of your future focuses was student leadership opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things you're considering there?
You know, actually, as we've been talking about our social emotional learning, one of the things that we'd really like to do with our children is have some peer mentors where children are helping teach other children some of the social skills, such as like turn taking and things like that, through our work on the playground and perhaps during our recess time where children are playing different games, so that the leaders are teaching those skills to the other children and guiding that through their modeling and also through some step-by-step skill work.
Very cool, very cool. And my last point, just not to take away, is you mentioned sister school collaboration. Can you touch a little bit on that?
So last year, Meadow Glens and River Woods, the principals, we got together and we decided as we were rolling out standards-based learning, we really wanted our teachers to have an opportunity to collaborate at a larger kind of group. And so we started to build what we called sister schools. And so last year, several times our schools met together to talk about standards-based learning, but even beyond that, some of our instructional practices, the communication that we have with our families, we really started to broaden that out. And then this year, Meadow Glens, River Woods got together and we included Ranch View kind of as a third sister school. So we started out one of our first Institute days together where we worked on our digital learning initiative together, and we also started some of our social emotional work together. And then Meadow Glens and Riverwood stayed together and we worked through some more learning with professional learning communities. So we're finding it really beneficial to have those partnerships with other schools to kind of create this collaborative stimulus where people are encouraging each other and broadening our learning and instructional practices.
Wow, wow. Well, I just comment on those three questions I asked. It's just very impressive, the work that you've done and the metrics that you're putting in place and some of the innovative ideas you have. It's really, really well done. Thank you.
Christine. Oh, he covered it? Okay. Donna.
Thank you so much for your report. So I'm looking at the student achievement slide where you have the growth from 2015-16 to 2016-17 with the English learners and the low-income students. And I'm a numbers person, so to see those big jumps in growth is very exciting. And I know you spoke to it briefly as you were going through, but can you just share a little bit more, elaborate on what you're finding I mean, we'd like to share that with everyone in the district as to how we're getting those numbers to jump.
I think the maybe three largest practices that really gave us some movement forward. The first one is co-teaching, where our teachers, a classroom teacher will have, for instance, our English language learner teacher come in, and they'll actually both teach together in the same classroom. That allows them to pull different small groups, work with individuals, and really target instruction based on what the children need. I think the second help that moved us forward was our professional learning communities, where teachers at a team, they're looking at all of their data together, they're talking about their instructional strategies, and they're looking to see what are maybe they missing in their strategies to help children move forward. And then the third thing that we did specifically at Riverwoods, we looked at where we had some areas for further growth in our standards, especially in literacy and language. And so we created our own learning continuums, looking at strategies, looking at instructional practices, looking at materials and resources that we can use across the grades. And we also looked at the specific vocabulary linked with a standard. We were focusing on summarizing, and we noticed as the kids went through the grades, the terms that we used for summarizing changed. And sometimes when the children got from one grade to another as they progressed, they may not have recognized the term. Like in lower grades, we often talk about retelling. When they get to the upper grades, we start to talk about summarizing. All throughout the grades, those words kind of change. And as we built a continuum of how that vocabulary changed, we're able to link in the student learning and not have children think, well, I used to do retelling and now I'm learning something totally new. But just having that vocabulary continuum helps us realize that the only thing that really changes is that word that we tie it to with summarizing, but the process still stays the same.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a quick comment and a question. So thank you both. It's exciting to see both your academic results as well as your SEL. And I can't help but tell the story from the first day of school when we came and toured your school and we asked you, show us something exciting. And you said, well, something exciting is always in the classroom. And the first thing that we saw was an SEL lesson being taught right there. And that was something that stood out to me throughout that whole entire long day of going to all the different schools. It was a really outstanding lesson. So I know that work is robust and that you're doing it every day, even the first day of school. I have a quick question for you based on your goals that you were talking in terms of goal 2. You were talking about your future focus being goal setting and feedback. And I just wondered what that will entail, if that's goal setting of the teachers, if it's including the students, if it's including the parents. What is that process going to look like for you?
For that goal, we're looking at goal setting for students, where students are working to realize where they are on the learning continuum and then setting further goals for themselves along that continuum. And then working with the staff to make sure that the children understand where they are and having a feedback loop for the children to understand this is where I am, this is where I want to go, and having those steps kind of in between and the staff helping them guide there to get there.
I think that's exciting just to see that, bringing the student in. These are the steps I have to take and that kind of thing. That's exciting to see. So thank you for sharing that. One more comment.
It's just a comment. As I was processing through a little further, the growth that we just highlighted, and I asked you about, and this is true for all of our elementary schools, but I just think it's important to say at this point because you had all that growth, but in addition, you're implementing the new digital learning initiative, you're implementing social emotional learning, you just implemented standards-based reporting, the elementary, and you dreamed and imagined and worked up this new learning commons area. Like there's a whole lot going on, and you're still having growth. So I think that that's true of a lot of our, of all of our schools, but I think it's important for the community to realize that you're not just focusing on that growth, you have a lot of other things that are going on too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next part of the agenda, 7.04 President's Report. I do not have a President's Report today. Board of Education Report, 7.05.
Should I have one?
Yes, okay.
So, as the board might be aware, I participate a lot in Illinois Association of School Business Officials. I do a lot of presentations for them during the year at their various conferences. So one big topic that's been up that actually took off on the Next Generation Summit, which we did in early August, was construction budgeting. So I took that presentation and I applied to the NSBA, National School Board Conference, and they actually accepted that as a presentation. So we will be doing a budgeting presentation at the NSBA this coming year, so I'm looking forward to that. And also, it was accepted at the Tri-I. So on the Friday of the Tri-I conference, I'll be participating in a budget discussion roundtable. And the idea is to educate board members on how to set up construction budgets and so forth, whether they're going for pre-referendum, and also to include all the costs. So just a little example.
I know several board members were able to participate in the community picnic, which was a great district-wide event. So thank you to all those board members who were able to participate in that. Okay. Moving on to discussion without action. Item 8.01, new course proposals for science.
I'd like to invite the Director of Curriculum Instruction, Jennifer Donatelli, to come forward before the Board of Education and provide a recommendation on a new high school science course credit changes, and course removals for the board's consideration and action at the next board meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jenny. Also available to support Jenny with questions, the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Jane Willard, and our two Assistant Principals for Curriculum Instruction from both high schools, Carrie Ray and Jackie Thornton, who are here this evening. So, Jenny.
Make sure my mic is on. Okay. Good evening. Tonight I am here to recommend a new high school science course credit changes, and course removals for Board of Education approval. As a part of Blueprint Commitment 118A, to develop and implement a rigorous K-12 science curriculum aligned to the next generation science standards. We are at a point in the curriculum development process and timeline to align our elective course offerings to the approved pathway and Illinois science standards. This slide represents the work of the high school curriculum team and what they have completed to date. In June of 2014, the Science Curriculum Leadership Team presented an overview of the Next Generation Science Standards and recommended a new pathway which was approved by the Board of Education. In 2014, a grade 6 through 12 science curriculum team was formed to design units of instruction aligned to the new Illinois Next Generation Science Standards. In preparation for the transition to the new approved course sequence, chemistry, biology, and physics, high school curriculum was implemented in phases. Chemistry curriculum was implemented first in the 2015-16 school year to begin the new pathway sequence. The next phase of curriculum implementation occurred in 2016-17, which consisted of grades 6 through 8, high school biology, and high school physics. The next phase, with the successful transition to the new pathway and the implementation of chemistry, biology, and physics, we would like to now focus on the final phase of implementation, the implementation process, which consists of aligning our elective courses to the Illinois Next Generation Science Standards and also future college and career options for our students. In order to complete the pathway sequence and to incorporate an earth science specific option, the curriculum team is putting forth the recommendation to design a full year earth science course to be implemented in the 2018-19 school year. This course would replace geology and weather and environment, which are currently both semester offerings. The focus of the new earth science course would be on the structure and development of the earth over time. It will be designed as a laboratory-based and field-driven course for students with interests that may lead to career possibilities in fields such as meteorology, geology, and environmental studies. Through the curriculum development process and in alignment with the Illinois Next Generation Science Standards, the science curriculum team has determined that anatomy and physiology should shift from a semester course to a full year course. The curriculum is too extensive for a semester structure, and the recommendation is to extend the course to a year-long offering. This course will be designed to align with the pathway sequence so that students can draw upon knowledge gained in both chemistry and biology and utilize it to further study the functions and activities of living organisms. Students will gain an in-depth knowledge of human anatomy, the structure of organisms, and human physiology. The course is recommended for students who are pursuing medical, sports medicine, and veterinarian studies. I will now open it up for any questions regarding the new earth science course, anatomy and physiology credit change, and course removals that have been recommended for Board of Education approval.
Okay, thank you so much for that report. Questions from the board? Charles?
On the last thing you talked about, the anatomy and physiology piece. So you're saying that there was just too much material to cover in a semester, so you extended. Was it twice as much, or are there now other things that because it's longer you can go deeper in?
You can go more in depth. Not additional content, but just take the time to actually study multiple organisms and be able to do the dissections, in different phases, as opposed to trying to cover the anatomy and physiology component and the dissection. It was just rushed within a semester.
And is that, as we look to other similarly sized or similar school districts, is it typically a year-long course at other school districts as well? Okay.
Usually you have a semester of the in-depth study of the anatomy and physiology, and then a semester of the dissections and application.
Donna?
So I just thought about this, but the prerequisites for the anatomy and physiology, is it currently just biology? Or I heard you mention chemistry too, so I'm...
The chemistry, biology, and then
So
they would be able to take anatomy and physiology.
But there's 2 prerequisites for it then? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to item 8.02, policy review, first reading, policy 7.300, extracurricular athletics.
Well, first reading, but not necessarily first reading. We have had this one before the Board of Education, but it is listed as first reading because we're not asking for action this evening. But this is we've had the opportunity to bring this before the board for much conversation, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Ross to highlight policy 7300 as it is, and we'll be looking for action at the next meeting.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Bridges. Yes, we have discussed this at a couple of other meetings, but there is a significant change in purple on your proposed draft in board docs. And I believe all the red language, which was proposed several meetings ago, I think we've talked. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions about those. But I think we've talked any of those questions through. What's different is what's written in purple and stricken. And that's to indicate that it did not appear that way at the last meeting. I'm going to call it to your attention. So as you know, we strive to and insist on having our practice match our policy. And as we looked at actually other parts of 7300, a question came up about the now purple bullet point. And as we discussed it, I thought, oh, we're going to go back and make sure our practice matches our policy. What we're proposing tonight is actually to make our policy change and match our practice. And here's why. Since this was last revised, when this policy was last revised, this bullet point was appropriate. It's a bullet point that comes from press, from the Illinois Association of School Boards. It's a bullet point that many districts have in their policy. Our insurance policy, our district insurance, and that of other districts in many cases, has changed since then. So if you can read through this stricken, it talks about how families will have to have accident insurance, and if they don't have it, we will sell that to them. And kids have to do that before they can participate in extracurricular activities. We stopped a couple years back selling that insurance. So actually, no student could comply with this bullet point because we no longer offer it. We no longer offer it because we had a change in our insurance, and our insurance company, or the co-op of which we're a part, no longer offers that. So we believe that by striking that bullet point, it will be able to comply with what we should comply with. It matches what we're doing now, and it more properly expresses actually what we've been doing for some time.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions from the board? All right. Thank you for that. All right, moving on to item 8.03, board agreements. So what we have under the board agreements are the follow-through from our board self-evaluation. We had come up with these board agreements at a previous meeting and approved them, but this was the first time that this board had an opportunity to look at those agreements. And so we want to open it up for discussion and any questions, and also for the board to consider how we want to approve them. So any questions from the board about the board agreements?
I had a couple, actually, because I could not participate because my employer was insisting I work that day. Anyway, I actually had a couple of last-minute client meetings, and I couldn't come to this one. So, but I came for the rest of the day. Under interactions, if I can find it now. Yeah. So it says we have, along with the superintendent, the right to expect performance. I'd like to add the word respect in there. Respect is mentioned throughout the body of the board agreements, but I think it's also appropriate to add it to this first line here too, if we could do that.
Okay. Everybody agree? I think it's great. Yeah. Thanks.
And I got one more. Under board see, and also under board interactions, the last bullet says, as visible role models for the students. I was wondering if we could move that as the first bullet rather than just the last one. I think it's kind of an important point that when you go back and read these, it'd be a constant reminder. I know we have it in the preamble to there, but I'd also like to see it moved up to the top.
I don't have a problem with that. Anybody?
Great.
Okay.
And then there was one more, which I was exchanging a couple emails today with. It was on policy 2.220 about the planning, adjusting to make the board president and vice president.
Which line is that?
So I think what you
Placing items on the agenda.
right.
Oh,
Or
I think it's item 2.20, policy 2.20 that you're referencing
Yes.
with regard to board meeting procedure, right?
right.
So in our revisions of the board roles, we had revised policy, I believe it's 2.10 with board roles, and we'd included the fact that the vice president and the president sit together in the board development agenda, but we did not, in board meeting procedure, make that similar change.
So that's under placing items on the agenda, and it says right now the Board of Education president and vice president are responsible for focusing board meetings. Our policy doesn't say that right now.
Well, it says it in the one policy, but not the
Right.
other.
So my recommendation,
Right.
I mean, that's an easy policy update. We could actually make that language change by simply adding vice president and bring it for action at the next meeting. And if you, I mean, I think that's all it's going to require. You
I
okay
agree.
with that?
I agree.
Because you're right. It more accurately reflects what practice and the spirit of what the board had intended with the other policy revision.
And I think that then you would just link that, because we link 2.110, we could link the two, we could put that one down there as well.
Yeah, the agreement should match policy. That's all. It's a simple thing, but
Okay. So I've got I've got your two changes under board interactions, and then we have this one under preparing.
I think it's placing items on the agenda, right?
Right.
placing items on the agenda, yes.
So then that one, it already links 2.2, so we might want to link 2.1 there, because that's the duties too. Okay. All right. So any other areas for discussion by any board member? Okay. In the past, I believe that we have approved this with a hand raise. Is that right?
Yeah, that's why we did it last
That's what I
time.
thought. We did a hand raise. We said, everyone in favor, and we all raised our hands. So I think we'd want another week to make these changes and come back, or another 2 weeks and make the changes and come back. But does that sound appropriate for everyone to go ahead with a hand raise for approving it? Okay. And then placing it under the Board of Education tab on the website. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay. Yes.
Could you just ask procedurally what the difference would be between a hand raise versus is there is one more?
You know, I think at that time, to be honest, as I sit here and think about that, and at the time that they were agreed to from a head nod, hand raise, whatever, I think it was at a time when an old board was retiring and a new board was coming on. And I think now that I think about it, and I could be wrong, was it?
It would be fine to vote it the other way.
I think
the
it's
regular
just,
way.
yeah.
It's fine. Let's just do it the
It was an
regular way,
action. I
because there's
agree.
no reason to.
Yeah. But I guess that was my point, is that it was let the next board who's going to finalize these take the actual vote. So I think it makes more sense to do that.
That's correct.
We can do a
But-
regular vote then.
And it also should display, we should have,
True unanimity.
yeah, unanimity, but also if we could set a tab or where it's going to be, so we could kind of show that at the next meeting where they're going to, how people could find it.
Sure.
I mean, the link where it's going to be on the website, so I can show them where to look for it. Because one of the things I learned last year at the NSBA is that the board wants to have ready access to the board agreements, because the board agreements are used to self-police meetings, so that if somebody speaks out of turn or goes outside the board agreements, you want to have ready access to them to go back there and say, hey, look, we agreed this is how this is going to go. And it's kind of a self-reminder for it, but it also takes the pressure, much like she was talking about resolving conflict. It helps to diffuse some of that.
Yep. Okay, great. Okay, so we'll have those for action at the next meeting with the revisions. Okay. Moving on to discussion with action, item 9.01, approved Naperville Transportation Association contract 2017 through 2021.
We bring to the Board of Education for your consideration action on a contract and agreement, collective bargaining agreement with the Naperville Transportation Association that begins with this school year and would extend through the 2020-2021 school year. As you know, the district owns and operates its own bus fleet and also has its own employees. Very pleased with the collaborative spirit and nature in which the district district and the NTA went about coming to this agreement. That I think has elements that represent respect for not only our employees, but also respect for the community and the taxpayers. Some of the contract specifics include an increase in salary of 2.75% for the 2017-2018 year, and an increase commensurate with 100% of CPI with no floor and a ceiling of 2.5% for each year ending in 2020 and 2021. But we've also tied in language regarding if there to be a property tax freeze, there will be no salary increase in any year impacted by the freeze, regardless of the applicable CPI. Contract is posted in board docs and is available for the community to see, and will be posted on the website shortly after board action, pending board approval. Be happy to answer any questions, but again, grateful for the collaborative spirit in which we worked with the NTA.
I'll make the
Comment
motion.
from Terry?
Well, I was going to make, it was indeed a very good process, very, very forthright and very fluid, and one of the better negotiations that we participated in.
I think it's it's an innovative contract. There's a lot of things that are done that I haven't seen in other districts, and it does reflect that true collaborative spirit. And I think also the value that our bus drivers have for our district. For many students who are going on the bus, they're like a family member.
Right.
So I think
and there are community members that are employed by the district who drive the bus, quite a few of them. And I think it's an important value to the community. It certainly was important when I ran in 2007. That was a key metric, and I'm glad we can continue it.
Any other comments from the board? Okay.
With that, I'll make
I'll
make a motion.
Sorry.
Sorry.
A motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve item 9.01, the Naperville Transportation Authority contract as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second are heard. Please call the roll, Ms. Bell.
Fielden,
Yes.
Young,
Aye.
Wanke,
Yes.
Gerke,
Yes.
Yang Roar,
Aye.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Kush,
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. Moving on to item 10, new business. Okay, moving on to item
Actually,
11.
before you leave that, there is, I brought up an email earlier today about looking at going back to a policy.
Okay.
Policy 2104. And we'd reviewed, Dan was kind enough to remind me that we reviewed it here recently about the term of the president and the vice president and so forth. But there's a secondary clause in that policy which it was been on my mind. It wasn't appropriate to address it the last time we talked about it, but it talks about that the president can call for a reorganization meeting, or the majority of the board can call for a reorganization meeting. And that struck me that that sentence may be inconsistent with where the board was headed when they approved the 2-year term flat out. And I'd like to see the board maybe reconsider that and possibly strike those words from the policy, that the policy consistent as a 2-year basis. And I also think that that conforms more with the law, which the law says you really have to have a policy in place that says a 1-year term versus doing it midterm. And also that'll prevent some mischief later on of people who get angry or so forth and want to make a change.
So our board working together agreements as well as policy allows an individual board member to ask for something to be brought on the agenda. Suggests that we put this as an agenda item for the October meetings, both the first and second, to allow for a first reading and conversation as well as action potentially after that. Does that
works for me?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay. Now to old business, item 11. Okay. Moving on to item 12, schedule of events.
Number of events there for the community's review. I'd like to make sure that the community is aware, those of you who support the Naperville Education Foundation, coming up on September 28th, celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Naperville Education Foundation. Would encourage you to support that event, as well as the foundation, who provides critical resources and support for kids and programs in District 203.
And tickets are easy to find on the website. There's a big banner posting on that, so.
And just a reminder for board members for that Tuesday, September 19th, if you'd like to attend that, please RSVP by, I believe, September 7th. Is that right? It's on the 19th, but you want to RSVP by the 7th.
I think it's the 7th, right?
So just be thinking today or the next day if you are able to make that commitment, and letting them know if you'd like to attend.
Right.
So just a reminder, the governance award is given at that dinner. And there is recognition for the full board, and they do take our picture and so forth. So it's a nice event to attend.
Yep, that one on October 19th, definitely. That will be the
Right.
board they'll recognize our board.
Right.
But I was actually talking about the September 19th,
Yeah,
the
okay.
school law
The
conference.
law
and
conference.
That deadline is September 7th. But both are great events, especially DIES.
Oh.
All right. Any other events we want to highlight?
Is the Success Organization event, did that happen? Did I miss that?
It is coming up. It is on Saturday, September 9th, 12 to 4 p.m. at Seeger Park.
And I think every family is invited. It's open. It is sponsored by Nipmuc
Right.
North, but all families in the district are invited.
Yeah.
All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
A motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.